an example game that I'd like to present, and with it, it's advice that once you get to a certain level, you need 2 sets of openings. And I think if I had to put a number on the rating range, it's getting north of 1900 USCF rating or 1800 FIDE rating, depending upon your geographic location. Because this definitely comes from my experience growing up in Alabama playing, that if I played the way I wanted to play, which is solidly with black, I would make draws and I never would have gotten the National Master title. I had to win with black. I played solidly with white and aggressively with black, which I was accused of that I would eventually go insane by Grandmaster Serper. But yeah, I didn't. I'm still here, still making content, still trying to tell you not to do what I did. And I've got an example game between a expert rated player and international master Casa Corley, who's playing black. And I'm a big fan of Casa. A couple of conversations we've had during the Emory Castle Chess Camp in Atlanta really helped with the way I was studying or perceived certain positions, and I was very much inspired by his games with the Janowski variation of the Queen's Gambit, and a conversation that we had about the opening really pushed me to write my aggressive Queen's Gambit decline text on Chessable. And now there's like 5 books on the Janowski, but I'm pretty sure I had the first repertoire that was based on the text. And a lot of that goes to him. So I look at a lot of games on a regular basis, and certain games make an impression because I think there's an underlying lesson. And Casa is not huge on opening theory. He's a very, very talented player and very strong in middle game and end game, and his understanding point A to B thinking with chess is really strong. But I would say in regards to openings, it's not a very aggressive or dynamic repertoire he plays with either color. He's definitely varied it up more in norm tournaments recently, but traditionally he's pretty solid and non-theoretical. And we'll see that in this game because he's just E6. Would you like to play a French? No. Okay, he's facing one of the systems that he's traditionally played with white, the London system. And already it can be difficult to create imbalances when playing against low-rated players with the London system. And that's why you've seen players like Georg Meyer lately going for systems with early B6, just because it's more imbalanced. And I would strongly recommend players have 2 sets of lines. I traditionally play more aggressively against lower rated players and play the way I feel I need to play best against higher rated players. And if the situation calls for it, you have an aggressive opening in place. There's double-edged sword with being only an aggressive opening player, like playing Knight Orphs and King's Indians and things. Because if you're having a bad tournament and it's a 10-round tournament, you're finishing last. Whereas the solid guy, they're plus or minus 2 most of the time. They rarely win tournaments. So it's, how is your stomach on losing? Mine isn't very well. I typically stay more solid. I make more draws than average, I would think. But back to the topic at hand. E3, bishop d6. And nothing sticks out as out of the ordinary here. C5. And now this next move, bishop a6, it says, not really theoretical. I just want a game. I'm going to make sure you're not doing any of the knight e5 stuff. And it could be a good decision versus a low-rated player, but there's not enough complications here, in my opinion, to try to trick a player that's even, say, 2,000 US chess. I'm not sure if this is FIDE rating or US chess. I'm assuming it's a 2,000 US chess rating. Queen e2, hitting the knight. And after queen c7, very, very solid by both sides. And not much to do here. E4, knight f6, And this is the type of position I do not want to get versus a competent, lower rated player, because there's no critical imbalances to really try to outplay the opponent. So to Costa's credit, he does a good job at getting something out of nothing. But overall, I want to show the dangers of playing too solidly with black against a lower rated player with this game. So now that I've beaten that horse, a4. And if we just take, there's a 3-2 on the queen side, so c4. First minor imbalance in the pawn structure. Now queen e5. Okay, clearly you're just trying to trade. If queen takes, knight takes, that's going to be eyeing that c pawn. So queen d5. If there's a trade, there's going to be a trade on our terms. Strong concept. We got what we wanted. Now, the next step. Slow, steady improvement of the position. It's an endgame, so we need to activate all the pieces. White's best piece is the forward knight on e5. f6. Get back. The e-pawn is weak. Now we're activating the king. Starting to feel like black's got a little bit of something. Definitely white didn't play ambitiously by any means. It's a London system, and it's roughly equal, but you got a little something here with black. a6. This is trying to provoke. Maybe if you do something like this, that could lead to an issue, and we're looking for the right moment later to break. Probably organize the rooks in the best way possible first, so that we can, when we break through, we're going to have full control over the b file and be able to line up on some targets. So rook a3 is played. Now rook d7. g5, getting space. And I'm loving every bit of this. h4. Would you like to take and open up your king to potential doom? No? All right, well, we'll just give you something to think about over here. Knight e3. And we've got a decision to make. Cannot hang the c-pawn. And it is a potential question that should we allow this idea? Maybe there's no way to prevent it, to try to maintain the tension. I'm not seeing it anyway. Takes, takes. Now king g6. And it looks impossible for white to really stop the entry of the black king into the game. The white king steps up. Our rook gets in. So rook h1. Takes, takes. King f5. And white's looking for activity. So black stifles it. Excellent. King e4. Got to protect the b-pawn. Don't come in. And now it's starting to become critical. If you're a pause the video type of person, this is around the time I would recommend starting to pause the video each move and figure out how you would continue to try to get winning chances here. Because it was looking great when white's rook was inactive on a3, but now, even though black's king placement is better, it's hard to get to any of the weaknesses. How can we do that? g4 first. Control those critical h3 and f3 squares. We like that. Rook c3. Now there's no way to force things here where it's going to be positive. So rook c8. Looking like he's willing to waste time. Play f5. And now it's time to calculate. Should we b5 or should we not b5? Should we find something else to do? Well, what would that something else be? And as there's no easy rook moves for targets, and he can just simply go rook b3, b5. Takes, takes. Make sure that guy's not going to run. So he's created a protected pass pawn for the opponent, which does carry some winning chances. So a double-edged decision, but if you're going to try to play for the win, that's the only way to do it. And already the idea is coming to my mind. I see the chain. You could break the chain, you'll have the outside passer for the win, if the rooks trade. So king f2, e5, rook b3. We need to maintain that pawn. And this is the most critical moment in the game. I believe if Casa found the right continuation here, this game wouldn't have even been on my radar, and we wouldn't have my suggestion for players to have two sets of openings, one for dynamic reasons, and one for how you personally play and enjoy playing. Variety is the spice in life and whatnot. So pause your video and see if you can find it. All right, in the main game, Casa played rook b8, and that went on to draw. I believe the best move is b4, where, for instance, rook c1, you have rook b8 here, and it makes a difference because there's no way for white to hold on to everything. b3, b2, and now the very difficult idea to see. This would be so hard to leave sitting on the board. f4, the creation of a second pass pawn. And it takes a player much, much stronger than I, and much, much stronger than, I would say, most IMs to find this type of deep continuation and understand it, visualize it, interpret it properly, because you live on the edge of the knife here in the end game in order to get the win. b3, and the engine starts giving away pawns because it doesn't see a way to prevent the push, and push, etc. Well, in the main game, rook b8, and after c6 takes. Got to do something about that. And objectively a draw. No real way to finesse, especially with the rook on the f-file. And a draw was agreed. So overall, no real risk of losing for black. And if you're comfortable with making draws, it's okay to play in this way, in my opinion. But if you're looking to get blood from a stone, sometimes it's not there, and lower-rated players are playing better and better games due to access to material. It's not like it used to be where you could just play a reasonable game and your opponent would just give it to you and you didn't have to try. I am running into that often in my games when facing experts and 2200 rated players. So, hopefully this was instructive. Vary up your openings.